What's up, everybody? Welcome to a long-winded unboxing video again. This is going to be unboxing the Lions model. Lion is the first Legion's Primarch. He's the first Primarch. Very cool as a character. I've always been a fan of the Dark Angel Legion. That's how I got into playing 40k with the Dark Angels chapter. But the Dark Angels in general and pre-Heresy Thousand Suns are probably some of my favorite stuff of Space Marines. Carcharodons are cool, love the Lamenters, I have a DIY idea for Primaris stuff. All that stuff's cool, and I find a lot of forces interesting and neat. But all around, I love my Pseudo-Egyptian pre-Heresy Thousand Suns, and I love the Dark Angels Legion and Dark Angels in general. So really excited when this stuff finally came out. So I thought, why not do the unboxing of the Lion? All I did really is go through this real quick, just to see if any pieces seem to be missing or damaged in any significant degree. And it doesn't seem it. I wasn't able to put it back perfectly, but we will unbox it. I just wanted to make sure beforehand, so if it was, I could say, hey, this is this, and I'm gonna contact Forge World or whatever, but it doesn't seem like I need to do that. And while the transfer sheet has been out before the Primarch model in Book 9, has been out for a decent amount of time actually before it, and it's currently temporarily out of stock, I figured it's fitting to look at the transfers of the Lion Legion. So we'll do both. This is going to be a long-winded. Starting off with the transfer sheet right here. If you've never bought a Forge World transfer sheet and they have one for the force that you are doing, I highly recommend picking it up. Even back in the day when the transfer sheets were kind of a newer concept, back when they had like the Blood Ravens transfer sheet, which I do have, and use a couple pieces out of it. Even back then, the transfers were great, and they just keep getting better. Back then, they weren't kind of form-fit like you expect transfers from GW to be, but they are now. At least I don't think they really were back then too much. But anyways, there are a good amount of transfers on this sheet, obviously. It's a bigger sheet than you typically get for a standard GW transfer sheet, and you get different colorations, and with the Dark Angels Legion, there's a lot to look at. So you got the symbol of the Legion there in white, red, and gold. Luckily, it's not just white, so it's hard to see the white pieces, but the red and gold are just red and gold versions of the white. You get the Roman numeral 1, First Legion. We get some lion's head and lion iconography. If you're going to do Disciples of Caliban or whatever, this is basically your symbol. You also see potential precursors to other forces, like Angels of Vengeance have a very similar winged hooded skull, but I'm not going to go into that here. That's for another time. But really cool symbols for different orders and the hexagrammaton and the different wings and everything else, just really looking good. A lot of symbology with the Dark Angels, which is fun. More of their Legion symbol as we would know it is cool, as well as some nice, really like high def colorized stuff you can put on banners or whatever else. Some cool Grim Reaper symbols that are kind of like their original look from prior to linking up with the Lion and getting the winged sword proper. And we get one of each for a banner. These would be straight up you put on a banner pole and would, on a banner itself, the bit, and would look fantastic. And more pieces of colorized very nicely. And then we get Angelus Morte and stuff like that. The First Sons of Caliban. Pretty nice stuff. Done in red, white, and gold. You just can't see the white too well. Then more of your traditional symbols like destroyer symbols and tactical symbols and whatnot. Heavy support and assault and all that jazz. Then we get the wings and everything else. And that gives us the entirety of the thing. The thing being the transfer sheet. I'm not trying to rush through it, but I'm also not going to pick apart each individual thing here. I have ideas for rambles based on Book 9, which I am still currently reading, by the way. I am nearly done with the Dark Angels portion, which is basically all the new stuff. There's a Night Lords portion that gives the kind of top of the Night Lords as they are during Thramas, but it's not like brand new. They don't have a whole huge section like you do when they have their original book and their section in that. So the Dark Angels are the part I want to finish before giving some initial thoughts and impressions. I will of course be reading through the book continuously to try and get it fully read. And me and a buddy will be doing a long-winded ramble cast in the future for sure on that. So with that said, that's the transfer sheet. Let's look at the Lion, the whole reason why we're here, really. So the first Primarch I purchased is fitting that it's the first. And, you know, as I said, Dark Angels, big fan of them. They're the reason I got into 40k truly, with the force that I did. So fitting that their Primarch is the first I get, and he is the first Primarch. That's also fitting. Would I get other Primarch models? Haven't looked at the way it is real quickly in here. Yeah, I think I would. I don't know who. There's some I don't really have an interest in. Don't really have an interest in Fulgrim. Don't have an interest in Lorgar. Even not really Magnus the Red, even though I love his Legion. But at the same time, if I, you know, it would be also kind of interesting, like my buddy is doing, then maybe try and collect all of them, but we'll see. I'm in no rush, put it to you that way. If I miss out, I miss out. Anyway, starting right off the bat, with that tangent done, we have his instruction booklet. This is important. It seems like these Primarch models, most of them or many of them, are a lot of pieces. Some are lesser pieces for sure, or just, you know, a bit simpler to put together, which is fine. In fact, I prefer that over overly complex. But this guy's got a lot of bits, and that's okay too. They're clearly defined, and there's also a lot for his base, which I was surprised about, but thankfully they include step by step for putting together more or less and his base. If you know Forge World back in 4th ed and 5th ed and even before that, and you purchased a model of theirs, you knew the absolute archaic, primitive, quote-unquote instructions we got then with stuff. So they come a long way, thankfully. They do a nice full bit breakdown, which can help you make sure you have everything. I didn't actually compare it to everything, but I just went through and more or less everything seemed in order. So you have his body, his helm, or his head, and when it's stuff for, it looks like the base, it's just labeled as diorama attachment or Space Marine body or corpse leg, because, you know, bisected head. Yes, we have a bisected head in here, which is kind of funny. So anyways, with all of that said, let's actually get looking at the bits. So gonna be long-winded. So I didn't put it back just how I got it, because I don't know how they packaged it, but we have two pieces. Basically, they're not really, I thought originally it would be organized for him and then the base, but they're not. They're interdispersed. So we have foam to hold everything. So let's start looking at stuff, starting off with his helmet and hip armor pieces. Now, like I said, I just made sure more or less everything seemed to be here. And nothing seemed to have any overtly crazy disasters in resin casting. So it happens. Now, I would assume in the character series they would take a bit more care and maybe a bit more quality control than you might with some rank and file stuff. And Forge World isn't bad when it comes to resin. Will you get the occasional little air pocket or bubble or pitting or whatever else? Yeah, it's resin. It tends to happen. It's nothing. It doesn't tend to be anything super glaring though. And if it's something really bad, I have heard stories that if you talk with Forge World, they'll work with you on it and help you out. So there's that. Here we have some corpse arms, some stuff for the Night Lords, which, you know, they're just display-based stuff, but they're of good quality too, and that's important. Here we have an arm of his and his backpack. Cool looking backpack. You don't think much on stuff like the backpack, but even like Primarch armor is always different looking and more ornate, and their backpacks are different as well. Here we have part of his surcoat or tabard or whatever else, just part of his clothy bits. And I gotta give them credit for how they were able to do. I'm sure that they know what they're doing, obviously, with resin. And it's not like they're the only company who do crazy folds like this in cloth with resin. But you don't really see that in stuff from like 5+ years ago, 10 years ago from Forge World. So clearly, resin capabilities have improved, much like plastic has improved. One of the things that's nearly guaranteed to happen that you're going to have to work with is what we see on these swords, some warpage. These are thin pieces of resin, kind of flexible. You want to be careful. You can see it's curved. The wolf blade and the lion sword have a bit of a curve to them. They're not perfectly straight. This is kind of passable. The lion sword less so. But all you do is a little bit of hot water, and then you're able to shape it a bit and all that jazz. But the wolf blade, looking good. And then we have the lion sword, which definitely has a more obvious curve to its blade that you want to be careful about. Now, it's nice that it doesn't feel as brittle of resin as maybe in the past it could have been, like I said, 10 plus years ago. Resin seems a bit more pliable, which maybe also leads to a bit more of that curving. But some hot water and some careful shaping should get it back in line relatively easily. And that's everything on this side. Here we have a selection of grenades and other bits. Even this little clothy bit here. This is where resin, not just from Forge World, but resin in general, kind of showcases a bit of its weakness, which is sometimes I feel, and I could be mistaken on this, but just what I feel from looking at this so far and other resin stuff I had in the past and everything, is that you need a bit more bits to do certain things, where stuff like plastic, you can get away with it being part of another bit. Anyways, here we have the lion's head right here. Looking really good in all its glory. And then we have some Night Lord heads, including that bisected head with some brain matter showing and stuff like that. Pretty gruesome, pretty cool. So there you go. We then have more clothy bits and fur pelt stuff for the lion pelt and everything else that would adorn the model. Stuff like this is part of the course. You can clean it up. Some companies, depending upon what they are and what the bit is, will clean it up for you. Forge World really doesn't do the cleanup thing and leaves it in your hands. But you just got to clip these off and, carefully, gently, maybe file it where it's attached to, but you'll be good to go. And then we have more Night Lord bits that you could theoretically use on a model, but I'm not going to. I'm going to build it like it's intended when I eventually get there. Cool stuff though. We have more bits for the Primarch, and I think another Night Lord boot thing, I'm not entirely sure. But we have his little Iron Halo thing, part of his bit here, and his pistol. Looking pretty good. You can feel, especially on the chunk of resin down here, you can feel a release agent for sure. So one of the things you need to do with resin, especially from Forge World and even from other companies, is carefully clean them. Now a lot of these bits are small and seem a little bit fragile. I have to imagine it's par for the course for a lot of Forge World's character stuff too, Primarchs or otherwise. So don't just do it in your sink in case it falls down the drain, but instead get warm soapy water in a bowl or whatever, clean it up, and then rinse it off in plain water in a bowl and let it dry that way, gently, just so paint adheres. Here we have a poor Night Lord who's gonna die. That's what happens when you go trader. Here we have the scabbards for the two different blades, which are cool. They don't really have a direct attachment point, like in terms of being keyed, which is interesting, but still nonetheless makes sense. So that's cool to see. And we have Night Lord backpacks right here. One's damaged on purpose, not damaged in terms of being cast, but damaged like he's battle damaged. And then we have his massive shoulder pads, which look really good. Good detail. And like I said, not a lot of problems with my particular casting of the pieces. A little bit of priming sometimes helps things come to light, but nothing seems glaring where there's a problem that's like in a delicate spot, like on the lion's head or whatever. So that's good. Definitely a fan of that. So then we have the other parts here. This is mostly for the base and also his body. And what's cool is, put that back there. What's cool is it comes with a little bit of painting and priming and building. Now this isn't telling us how to paint them. It would be great to have a recipe sheet for what they did, but instead, oh look, this is checked. This was checked on the 27th of February. Interesting, right? Anyways, this is telling you different tools and glues to use, such as super glue and accelerator and epoxy glue or whatever. So you have a little breakdown of what you can use for cleaning, sculpting, making, whatever the models. Just it's not tailored towards the Lion. It's a general thing that used to be a PDF for Forge World. I don't know if you can still get it as a PDF. Telling you to prep the models, cleaning it, and checking it, dealing with the casting gates, which are those big pieces. They even talk about mold lines and shims if you need it. Then they talk about warp parts and repositioning. So this is what I was talking about earlier with the blades. Not a big deal. You don't want to use a naked flame to heat resin. It'll just burn it up. That won't be good. And assembly and priming and painting. Just a nice additional addendum for working with resin, because it is different from working with pewter or plastic. So one of the things I can say in looking at this stuff in more detail is that stuff like the resin base are great and really work out well with resin, but a lot of the bits, I mean, the Lion's model could definitely probably be done with great justice and just as crisp in plastic nowadays, but Forge World works in resin and it looks good anyway. So this is the main portion of his dioramic base. A small base would sit on it here with him on it, and it sits on a big base. You probably wouldn't even need to glue it to a big base, but it's there nonetheless. Like, it feels sturdy enough where you don't have to, but you might as well since it's there. And the Lion would stand on here. And then for that we have this piece, which they even call out to not glue, because this is meant to slide over here and just hide his base. Kind of not lock in, but slide in and just look good. And then you just slide it off and take them out so you can play with them. So that's cool. We then get the base that sits on top of his personal base that he stands on, and it's pegged for his feet. And it sits more or less like this, which is pretty good. Always enjoy basically cast base stuff, and here on the base you can also get kind of a hint of the release agent there, just if you want to clean that up. So we have his awesome cloak of awesomeness here, billowing in the wind. Again, nice aggressive folds in the cloth and everything that I would not have expected from resin definitely years ago. I don't know why, but I wouldn't have. Looks good, and doesn't feel very brittle, which is good too. And then we have his body. His body's big. He's a tall guy. He's a Primarch, right? So let's see, where is that poor Night Lord? There he is. Put them next to each other, foot to foot. You can see there is definitely a height difference. But yeah, this is a nice chunk of resin here for a body. And you can see where other pieces are meant to go. There's not detail there. So it's a bit easy to see for some stuff. And also keys and pegs, I should say, are holes for things to be keyed into to really help you along in building them. But the instructions are going to go above and beyond, obviously, really be super helpful for building this guy. But just looking at this, definitely a case for building and painting in stages. That's definitely what I'm going to do and what I would recommend. Partial build, paint it up, set it aside. Partial build, paint it up, set it aside. When two pieces are done that can be glued together, you glue them together. Being resin, super glue, and you want at best bare resin to glue onto it. And you'll be good to go. What I can say, I've worked with some resin stuff in the past. Resin either really is finicky with getting super glue to take to it. Again, make sure it's good and clean. Or it almost sticks instantly. The super glue almost binds immediately. So dry fit, then dry fit some more, and then glue. Especially for something with some small, more fragile bits like this, you don't want to have it be in the wrong spot because you're not getting it off without breaking it. Anyways, really nice instructions, like I already said. Really nice, well done bits. At least for me, I've heard there's been some bubbling and pitting in certain spots, but for me, the model seems pretty stout, pretty much good to go. Just clean it up, and then maybe upon priming it, I'll see something minor. But definitely not tackling this guy anytime soon. But when I do start to tackle him, I'll catalog it, document a little bit, and I'll go in really, really slow steps. I might even just get his base done first and then work with him. I don't know. We'll see though. Anyways, with all that said, did you pick this guy up? What are your thoughts on him? I think he looks great. It is a bit intimidating to look at all the pieces, but they're all spelled out very nicely in this instruction booklet. And despite him being a lot of pieces, it's not an overly complex build. And the lion's helm and his bear head are definitely going to be easy enough to magnetize if you so desire. His weapon arms, not so much. It's a bit of a delicate connection point, it seems, but you never know. Anyways, with that said, looking at this makes me both take pause and potentially getting another Primarch model in the future, but also makes me kind of excited to potentially get another Primarch model in the future because they're really well done pieces. So thanks very much for sticking through this long-winded ramble. If you haven't picked up a Forge World transfer sheet, not necessarily this one, but any particular one. This one is temporarily out of stock as of this ramble, so you have to wait for it to come back. But maybe another Legion or some other force that has a transfer sheet available from Forge World, I highly recommend picking it up. They're very well done transfer sheets to have. With all of that said, I'm going to put this back carefully and set it aside carefully until I'm ready to start working on it. So thanks very much for joining me on this ride, and until next time, take it easy.